morning, sometimes the weekend, sometimes the afternoon, sometimes the evening, sometimes midday, sometimes noon. Binda, getting the Binda.
Morning house.
Morning, Binda.
Yes.
Yes. Are you ready for some suches and whatnots?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Kids are out of school today and tomorrow. So I like to think that I'll be, able to sit here and focus at the same time, being realistic. Uh, there's probably going to be some, of the normal yelling at them to do chores and trying to get them to actually, get off the couch, not argue with their mom, that sort of thing.
This
So
is easy. This is where you need outside parenting help from somebody like me.
from somebody with no experience.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. Sometimes that's the best thing to do.
yeah.
What you need to do is you need to promise the boy unlimited porno if he's a good boy and he doesn't make his sister scream. You need to promise the girl another pony if she
Oh
does
God.
everything if she does everything that she's told without any type of argument, a frown face, or anything along those lines for the next 2 days.
This is why you're not a parent.
Okay. And then at that point, okay, after the days are over, they're back in school, then she's going to be like, "Where's my pony?" And you say, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then the little boy says, "Where's my porno?" Be like, "I don't know what you're talking about." This is how you do it. And then they resent you.
Exactly.
20 years later, they'll resent you, but it'll be so far gone. You will have disappointed them so many other times between now and then that it really won't matter.
But see, the problem with your idea here is that you get only get to use that once.
So maybe,
There
give
is
it a
no
shot.
maybe.
See what happens.
No,
Give it a shot. No.
no, no. Let's not promise things and then not deliver because then next time, you know how this works.
Okay, that's fine. You can give the boy a Victoria's Secret catalog. You know,
He has
that's
a
that's what
phone.
that's what we got to use
He
back
has
in
a
the day.
phone. I mean, you
And,
don't need that
and
anymore.
you can get the girl a little My Little Pony, the one that she can braid the hair and comb it.
She has two horses. I don't think she wants a My Little Pony.
Well, it wasn't defined what type of pony, okay, and it wasn't defined what type of porno. So therefore, you're still in the right.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. So this week is going to be interesting. We have Fed minutes on Wednesday. So we have that. We know that is a market mover no matter what, even though they speak every fucking 6 seconds during the day. So we get Fed minutes on Wednesday. We get CPI on Thursday. And we get data coming out of Europe pretty much all week long. It is Thanksgiving in Canada. So for our neighbors to the north, say thanks for giving. Um, from the standpoint of global news and such as and whatnots, all that kind of stuff, that's where we're at. There's more and more articles surfacing over the weekend and throughout the morning as far as the strength of the dollar absolutely wrecking domestic manufacturing, that they just can't compete, not even close, not even within the same ball game. That domestic manufacturing is big F fucked as long as the dollar stays as strong as it is. So we have that. Also, additional articles coming out as far as midterms and the economy and what people are wanting to see, and how if the Democrats don't make the economy do good stuff between now and then, they are big F fucked. Big F fucked. Massive F fucked. This goes back to the old days when we had real presidents, somebody like Mr. Clinton, who said it's all about the economy, stupid. And meanwhile, we are stuck on stupid in this day and age as far as being like, oh no, it's not real. It's not real. Your money's not real. With all this being said, looks like we're trying to push a little bit green here. Don't know what to think about it. Don't necessarily know why we had Friday being what it was, but here we are, and we're probably right back. Bender's going to show us some lines, and we're going to talk about these lines, and we're going to try to be vigilant with these lines. I know for me personally, if I'm creating a game plan, okay, my game plan is to be ready to be actionable post data on Thursday. Anything else is just quick scalps in between. Thursday CPI print is going to be a pretty important one. We'll see how the market reacts. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not so much what the data reads; it's how the market decides to act. So let's keep an eye on that. Let's keep an eye on some of these metal tickers to see whether or not they're getting some activity going into the Fed minutes. That's basically where I'm at with the whole thing, Bender. I'm going to continue to watch the little tell symbols. The activity around ARK-K is going to be important once again. The activity on our little crypto friends, the Bito was his name-o, as well as Mara and Riot, seeing whether or not those are risk on, risk off going into this print. It could be something that if nothing else, not necessarily gives you an opportunity to front run it, but just gives you a sentiment idea as far as whether or not we are risk on, risk off going into this data, which obviously CPI is going to be very, very, very important, right? Important. If we see, a pullback in inflation, then maybe some of the dialogue coming out of the Fed, they can soften up a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. Who the fuck knows? Bender, tell us what you got, buddy.
I was just thinking, you mentioned Clinton, and it's like, so I guess him getting a blowjob under his desk probably wasn't that big of a deal.
I've always been a big fan that the most powerful person on the planet should be able to get head whenever they want. Last thing I want somebody to do is being all angry and frustrated, not getting head and having nuclear codes. It's just not something there's a piece of that tells me that if you have nuke codes, you should be able to get head at will, especially if it's consensual. It's like
It's just when you think back or kind of remember back to that, that time, what was a big deal seems absolutely insignificant these days, where it's like, oh no, but I don't know. It's just how the public would have reacted to some of the things that we've seen from, recent presidents. It's like getting a blowjob, maybe even smoking a joint. No big deal.
Yeah, well, it's a sign of the times, right? It's like look, we're in such an environment to where if somebody sneezes sideways, they're going to come after them and be like, "Oh, you're the devil." Things like getting head. Consensual head
has been
what?
The bar has been lowered or
Has it though?
raised
Or
as
elevated?
far as what we're willing to endure or accept or whatever, and go, oh yeah, okay, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, things that historically would have never been accepted or overlooked.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. Especially if you go back and you listen to like the LBJ tapes or listen to the Nixon tapes, that type of stuff. It's like you start hearing some of the, the dialogue and the mentality, within the office. You're like, what the fuck? These guys were president? These guys were like, these guys? These guys?
Yeah.
It doesn't pass. It's like, it almost goes back to, in a lot of ways, listening to Eddie Murphy Raw about a week ago, like watching that and the stand up. It's like, yeah, no, none of these jokes would fly nowadays. You can't get up there and do that anymore.
Right. So there's certain things that obviously we've developed less tolerance for and is no longer acceptable. But then there's obviously, behavior and skeletons in the closet sort of thing that apparently we've become much more tolerant for. So anyway.
So I think the lesson in all of this, if you are to run for public office, whatever is thrown at you, that is true, just own up to it immediately.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. I smoked a joint. Yes. No, I got head. Yes. Yes. No, I did. I did. I'd do it again. Thank you. Did you say this? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. No. Did you mean? Yes, I did.
I'll try my best
And what
not
did
to
they do?
say that again, but I can't promise.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that. I'd be like, odds are I'm going to say it again. It's like,
And if I'm elected, just know that you're electing somebody that may go out and do these things. Okay.
there's a good chance that I would refer to China as herpes between now and the end of time. That is a very, very likely scenario.
All right.
Anyways,
Levels. We are sitting. Let's get a current read. 36, 65, 75. Wow. So we came up a little bit since we started this. Okay. What I have today, 3660, right? Key level. I hate that we're talking about 3660 again, but we are. This is the level, last week that was that we talked about a bunch, and the week before. So 3660, I think, is key early. If we can hold above 3660, maybe we go up and test that 3686. That was a previous level of support and resistance. Above that, 3700 hold number. And then it starts getting tricky because 3707 is the 50 MA on the 60 minute. It's also previous trendline support, now acting as resistance. I've actually got two trend lines that kind of come to meet right in there, 3705 to 3710. So if we, manage to hold 3600, 3655, and we start pushing up, if you're long, that 3700 to 3710, you've got to be aware that there are going to be some shorts out there that are going, man, if we could just get to that 3705 trend line, I'll hit the shit out of it. Just know that could be there. If we manage to get above that, 3732 is the 5 MA on the daily. Levels below. If we do not hold 3660, I would be looking to 3640, which is where the 10 and the 20 on the 60 minute come into play. They're squished together. You got like 3638 and 3642. That would be kind of the first spot to look for a bounce. Now, if we break 3660 to the downside, and it, you're looking at it going, this looks like it's going to spill. A short under 3660 with stops just above, maybe 3665 or 6, could provide a nice entry. But then I'd be looking at 3640 or say 42, where the 10 and the 20 and the 60 minute come into play for a bounce. And then, if we break that to the downside, you can short again on the recheck, or continue to ride it out from there. 3632 previous area of support and resistance. 3618 was the overnight low. Below that takes us to 3600. That's what I got. Overnight inventory 100% short. So it's not size though. But oftentimes when overnight inventory is heavily leaning one side or the other, you'll get that counter move, in the first couple of minutes where it's, if they feel the need to cover, well, they're coming in 100% short. So, you might see that bounce. You might get that bounce with an opportunity to short if you're leaning bear. Coming in 100% short, bears will look at that and go, oh, well, we might get a pop at the open that I get to short. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, that is where we're at. What's interesting about, listening through and kind of walking through the chart, which I encourage everybody to do when Bender's going through his levels, pull up a chart, even if it's just SPY, you can see where he's talking about. You can see the areas that he's talking about, and it gives you an idea intraday if for whatever reason we're not giving you kind of live updates coming up against these levels where you should be looking as far as what the price activity could be. Like it's one of those pivotal moments on the chart to where it's like, okay, does bull step in and throttle, or does bear come in and just slit the throat? It's like that's these levels that he's putting out there are absolutely in line with that mentality, the one or the other. So just if you're not doing that, I encourage you to do that moving forward. Stockington, aging Stockington.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning,
Uh,
Stockington.
yeah, I've got this one buddy that anytime he's putting drugs up his nose, he looks at us and says when he runs for office, we have to all forget that happened. So I'm going to tell him I learned today. Just admit it. Say you did it.
Just admit it. You can get away with pretty much anything other than kicking puppies and fucking with children. Other than that, you can get away with pretty much anything. Those are like the two things you cannot do.
I'll let him know. I think he's already elected to some weird thing. So just admit it. Got it. Levels. So triggers on Microsoft and Tesla were intact. I made a slight change to Netflix. Microsoft, be looking to see what it does, kind of where it bounced pre-market, 232.25, and then above I had a line 235.30. They hit Microsoft with dark pool on Friday after the close, $494 million, sitting at 234.24. So I'm going to be watching that line, kind of put it in between the triggers to give it a chance to react and retest. Tesla, looking at I'm going to see what it does if we're going to move to the upside, 225.2, and then to the downside had 221.85. Netflix, there's a bunch of dark pool sitting around like 224, so there was this line down here, 223.86. So I'll be looking what happens, kind of bounce through that pre-market, and then I had a fib at 228.25. The upside, see what we get there. And I didn't put it on the list, but I always am watching NVIDIA as well. For NVIDIA, I'd be looking at 118.95 if we're going to go down, kind of where it bounced pre-market, and then I have a line up here at 122 flat as like a psychological level. So I'll be keeping an eye on NVIDIA. Other interesting dark pools, just would throw out Google. I think you put out a trade on that one. Google, they hit it with 97 million on Friday at 96.60 or 98.68, which for Google that was kind of decent volume. But that's all I got.
All right. What's interesting about some of the things, I want to touch on a couple of things. The noise in and around semis is so loud, it is ridiculous. It looks like the administration might slap more tariffs and make it more difficult for China to acquire our shit. You got to keep that in mind. You got to keep the global demand in mind. You got to keep the PC demand in mind. You got to contemplate what AMD said. So it's like you have all of this bad news, all of this, we all gonna die. We're never gonna use semis. We're going back to rubbing sticks together and fucking horse-drawn carriages and all that kind of shit. That's what the news wants to be. That's the narrative that wants to be pushed. You have to be careful because whether that is a reality or not, whether or not we're no longer going to use electronics in any capacity ever again, the news and the headlines are going to push the stock. So with semis, be careful. It's like Friday, or was it? I think it was Thursday. I was just sitting there staring at AMD going like, you know what? I really think I can get this pop up to, 72, 73 over the next week or so. And then it clicked in my head. It's like, yeah, but it's like everything is just so fucking negative against it. That night, they pre-release and the thing just plummets, sinking the rest of semis. Gotta be careful. You imagine that if we've seen this cycle before to where they'll go ahead and pre-release and then another company will be like, well, that wasn't so bad. So they'll pre-release also. Just got to be careful. Got to be really, really careful with sectors that are under that type of pressure. And I don't think there's any doubt that they're under pressure. You can go ahead and flip the narrative and be like, well, yeah, but a lot of this should be priced in, hells. You're fucking damn right it should be. but we don't get to decide. We don't get to decide. So just keep that in mind when you're playing around semis. Last thing I want to say, we talked about CPI and we talked about Fed minutes to open. There is going to be a risk off of some capacity going into it. Obviously, the risk off at this point, we've talked about it before, is to see some covering going into these prints in this data. Some type of covering. That would be the risk off. Risk off would be hedging to the upside. That's where we are. That's the environment. Just some things to keep in mind. We have 20 minutes till open. Bender, Stockington, you have anything for us?
I gave it all.
He gave it all.
I gave it all.
If there's one ticker that I'm looking for a very strong move to the upside, it is going to be Google. I'm going to continue to buy Google and play Google to the upside. Over and over. Every time they knock it under 100, I'm buying more. You knock it under 100, I'm going to buy some more. That's just the way that shit's going to be with me. Anyways, that's all I got. 18 minutes still open.